Does it feel like every part of your life is divided? Every scenario, every environment, your church, your school, your work, your friends, left, right, conservative, liberal, religious, secular. It seems you always have to take a side. This is a conversation between a progressive Christian and a conservative atheist who happen to be great friends. Welcome to Living on Common Ground.
Do you think if we met today, we would still be friends?
I don't know, but we're friends now.
A mob is known as a mob because they're with you.
Man, so what? We won a few games. And y'all fools think that's something? Man, that ain't nothing, y'all. And you know what else? We ain't nothing either. Yeah, we came together in camp. Cool. But then we're right back here and the world tells us that they don't want us to be together. We fall apart like we ain't a damn bit of nothing, man.
Now that we've talked for 30 minutes.
Now that we've gotten our powder wet.
Yep. So, last night we wrapped up
It's all personal stuff, so nobody's going to hear it.
Yeah. Last night we wrapped up a study that we've been doing. I've mentioned it, but just to give it some context, earlier this year, like back in the spring, I was asked if I would be willing to share how I read the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And so that led to all kinds of projects. And
you said the correct way.
Yeah.
Next.
Yep. It was really short conversation. So that led to the book that Caroline right now is editing, The Bible I Thought I Knew.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, which is going to end up being the study in the spring, but that's all beside the point. So what we were talking about, what we've looked at this last 9, 10, 8, whatever weeks was midrash and how we got there and what are good questions to ask and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So last night we went back and we reread Genesis, the first creation story, not the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read from the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian creation story. Are you familiar with it?
I am. I mean, I couldn't quote it, but I am familiar with it. Yeah.
It's longer than the Genesis story.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm trying to remember the goddess's name. But basically the story is that Marduk tears this goddess, Tiamat?
Tiamat.
Yeah, Tiamat in half.
That's his mother.
I don't remember that part, but I do remember he like tears this woman in like this female god in half and puts the
very much like the Greek origin creation stories. There are things that come prior to the gods, and Tiamat is like it's almost like its existence itself prior to the gods, and so anyway, in Greek mythology, you've got the Titans, and Kronos, and all of that are prior to the gods.
Right.
And the gods take over, and this is a similar thing. Marduk gets born, and then go ahead.
And so he takes half of her and puts her up, and then explains to the other gods that half of her is to hold back her waters.
Yeah,
and then the other half becomes the ground, right, or whatever. And so anyway. And the point was we were comparing it to the Genesis story.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting. But I got an email later in the evening, and I know enough about it to be familiar, but not enough to have an opinion. And so it comes from Catherine, and it's,
I don't need to know anything to have an opinion. So let's go.
Well, actually. I'll read you my response too, which I think should make you smile, maybe. So the email says this: when you read the Babylonian creation story, I was thinking it sounded very much like Eros, feminine/chaos, energy, i.e., body being split open, childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is I think that's really interesting, and it's a very interesting way to look at the narrative. So then she says, whereas the Genesis story is from a logos, masculine / order energy. All right, so far I'm tracking. Right? Yep, I got it. I think it's great. I was also thinking about the connection between the character of Marduk, who later becomes a savior of the gods, because of his wise words, and Jesus, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Still gotcha. Still following. All right, but here's what I don't know enough about. But I'm wondering about the aversion to or conflict with the divine feminine from the ancient Hebrew perspective. All right, I don't know enough about that. In fact, I just ordered a book that Krista suggested I order called When God Was a Woman. And because I know about divine feminine. I know that, but I haven't done enough research or study to be able to form a good opinion about that. But then she goes on to write, I know later on, maybe in the book of Judges, God forbids Israel to offer sacrifices to the Queen of Heaven. Was the divine feminine seen as, quote, evil because it was chaotic and destructive? How would ancient Israel have conceptualized the divine feminine in contrast to logos? And I'm not sure. So my response was, these are great questions, and I don't really have an answer. I recently ordered the book, When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone. That may shed some light. I'm hoping that it does. The book was recommended to me by Krista. I bet she has some wonderful insights. And then I wrote, maybe I will ask Lucas tomorrow when we are recording the podcast and see if he has any thoughts. And then she said, awesome. Thanks so much. So basically the way that you should read that is you were my second option.
That's good. That is smart.
Oh goodness. So anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, I think it's a fascinating subject. First off, I would not ever presume to characterize the entire Semitic history in regards to their position on the feminine and the masculine.
Right.
I'm not some sort of expert.
Well, and
I have a lot of.
Well, I will throw this out there, but I want to. You're going to probably do most of the talking, and then I'm just going to interrupt. That's how this episode is going to go.
Good.
That in the Bible, in the Hebrew. Let me rephrase that. In the Hebrew text, the Hebrew scriptures, the Spirit of God, the Ruach, is, and the wisdom is feminine.
That is a tradition. Yeah.
So my initial reaction would be like, I'm not sure that there is I forget exactly. Let me go back to the email. I wouldn't say that there is how did she put it? I wouldn't say there's a conflict with the divine.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm glad I interrupted you so that now you can continue on and explain to me why I'm mistaken. Not wrong, just mistaken.
No, I don't think you're mistaken. I know that there's a tradition that there are some Christian traditions that have the Holy Spirit as being feminine, and there's a lot of there are some Hebrew traditions that have some sort of spirit being feminine, but I do think that there is a strong strain of being of an aversion to feminine divinity, and also just the feminine in general throughout the Hebrew scriptures. There's some Orthodox prayer that and I don't know how, strain this falls into, that where some Orthodox sects that pray, thank you God for not making me a Gentile or a woman. There's that. That's kind of a side example, but there's a lot of study in historical study of how the Hebrew culture developed that was a rejection of a lot of the religious traditions that they were around. Other Semitic traditions also, by the way, which I think most of the people groups in that area were Semitic. And they were rejecting a lot of the, feminine origin of the divine. Jordan Peterson talks about this actually a lot.
Okay.
And I think he was one that kind of inducted me into thinking about humanity and about the divine and about existence kind of in this way, changing my perspective a little bit, at least letting me look at it in a different way. This is a really crude way of describing how he would describe it, but he would, generally speaking, describe chaos as feminine and order as masculine. And when he says chaos, even though we have a negative connotation to that term, he would not mean it negative. What he talks about, and he would say this, is chaos is now my mind's going blank. It's like that which could be. It's outside of the border of order.
Okay.
It's the frontier of creation, right? The creation comes from. It's the origin of all that is.
So if you connect it to the Genesis story, it is when it says that there was chaos before and the Spirit hovered over.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the sea. The problem is that the origin story, the creation story that the Hebrews had, I think comes as somewhat of a rejection of this, because it is God created the heavens and the earth. But you can kind of see remnants of it as, yes, and the Spirit of the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the fathoms, right?
Well, I definitely think that all right, I don't know anyone that would argue. Well, I shouldn't say that. I believe that the Genesis story, to me, obviously, is written as a rejection of or a reframing of existing creation stories. So when you say that, absolutely. Sure. But I do think, right, so I just pulled it up. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. That's the New Living Translation. But if I go to here, the NRSV.
Formless and void.
Yeah. The earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while the wind from God swept over the face of the waters. So I would say that in the beginning, there is this idea of something existing prior to Logos.
Right. So chaos can also be considered potential. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that's good.
It's potential.
Yeah.
It is unorganized potential.
Well, and so I guess what I'm saying is that stands up to, if you want to talk about like the poetic imagery in Genesis, I think that stands up to the scrutiny. I think that it fits. I think that that view of it, or that presentation of it, fits with that theological story.
I also just think, like, to me, when and again, this is just my personal perspective on it. When I think about about Genesis and the Old Testament in general, I sit and I wonder, is this what we are left over with? Is this what we are left with? Like, for how many thousands of years did this story contain other things as well? And then what we were left with, what has come down to us, is this. For instance, you can imagine in the future, I could imagine 3,000 years in the future, some scenario in which the New Testament still remains, but the Apocrypha doesn't exist at all.
Oh, yeah. I
Right?
mean, I think that that's something that the Protestants are working hard at doing already.
Right. And so you can imagine that. You can imagine that 2,000 years from now and then going forward. So now you're living 3,000 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But 1,000 years prior, that the Apocrypha stories are long gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone knows that the New Testament is this. But in reality, that's not the case. It's just what came down to them, right? I'm imagining, this is fictional, but I'm imagining. So, because what I have realized is that most of the cradle of civilization myth stories, Greek and Mesopotamian and all of them, the gods that they worshipped, they were always descendants of something else. Like the Greeks had gods that they worshipped. They were descendants of something. They had a story about the descendants. Mesopotamians, the Babylonians, they all had these gods that they knew existed, but they were descendants of something else that came prior. So in a way, we talked about this before, where I'm like, I don't know how you could be a god and be subject to, right? They were all worshiping gods that were subject to, right? They were the descendants of. They were the rulers. They were all powerful, but they were descendants of. The Hebrew Bible doesn't have that. It's just God. God was from the beginning. There was no prior. God didn't come from anywhere, right? So what I wonder is that always the case in the story? Or is there some prior? So anyway, going back to the whole feminine and masculine, a couple things that we should establish right from the beginning. Feminine doesn't mean woman. Masculine doesn't mean man. Though, because humans are largely bimodal, feminine mostly means woman and masculine mostly means man. And so what I think is interesting is that you've got all of these traditions where the feminine is the source of the gods. And like in with Marduk ends up killing Tiamat and kind of creating the world from that, which kind of sounds like if you could anthropomorphize the void, it kind of sounds like the Hebrew creation story.
That's what I was suggesting earlier. That's what you'd have to do, right?
Yeah.
So there is this within the Hebrew wisdom literature.
Yeah.
Of course, they personify wisdom. Chokhmah, I think is how it's pronounced.
Of course, wisdom is always standing at the corner and calling, right? And it's a woman.
And one of the traditions is that wisdom, because I don't want to keep saying the Hebrew, or in Greek it's Sophia, but is present with Yahweh at creation.
Yeah. And
so it's the combination of Yahweh and Sophia. Or Chokhmah. Okay. So I'm just thinking to myself right now, logos, which comes from Greek philosophy, because Philo of Alexandria, he takes this idea of the spirit and wisdom and connects. He's the one that connects it to logos, and then Paul picks up on that and runs with it.
But if you step back and you think about,
because I've got an idea forming in my head. Go on.
So I'm going to introduce also. So Jordan Peterson talks a lot about chaos and order and the balance between. and the pathology that happens if you get too far one way or the other. So I think that's really interesting. And then Tom Holland, the historian, really opened my eyes to how ancient Greeks looked at the feminine and masculine, and they did mean male and female also when they were talking about this. That's the thing. Like everyone, that is an assumption, and I think that's fair. I think that's fair to talk about it like that.
Well,
too.
the images that they created,
because I do think that it's related,
male and female.
I do think that it's related. I do. I don't think that it's somehow completely separate. We're bimodal. We're a bimodal organism. I think
when you're talking about in terms of creation, I think that the idea of womb and seed, and seed. So you talk about bimodal. I think that obviously I shouldn't say, but that's where you begin to develop a concept of creation. It's going to be something like that.
Yeah, because this is what you're seeing, and so what Tom Holland talks about with the Greeks is that they saw the female as the direct connection to all that is mysterious, and that includes the gods and everything that is important in existence. Females were they held that within them, and of course they did, right? Because they hold life. And if you think about somebody who is not thinking about the world through a scientific method or Enlightenment values or whatever, we think we've conquered this somehow, right? But if you just think about somebody who is living close to the bone, an entire world of humans who are living close to the bone, the women hold the connection to everything that means anything. They hold within themselves. I've said this, I've talked to Chris about this. If you think about it from this perspective, they hold within themselves the ultimate purpose. Their ultimate purpose is just who they are. They're the bringer of life. You think about it from again, somebody who's living in 3000 BC, right? The woman the feminine holds the entire purpose within themselves. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to accomplish anything to be. It's I think about it like a superhero. Like Superman's identity is the fact that he's a superhero. He's not a news reporter who happens to also be a superhero.
Right.
And his identity is he's a news reporter because that's what he does in the world, and he has an occupation, and that's what you know what I mean? He's a superhero. That's from the moment he exists, he has a connection with whatever, you know? And so the Greeks had this, they had this society built on this concept that seems it can be seen very patriarchal through our lens, because the males did dominate. They controlled all the politics, all of the societal functions, because the males had to go out and work into the world. The females had the connection with, so they were always, all of the oracles were always, if you want to say it this way, staffed by women, right? It was always female priests, and because they had the connection to the mystery, right? And so I think that's interesting in this whole conversation too. It's another perspective, and I think that the Hebrew tradition, by the time we recognize it, by the time we know what's going on, it's not like that. The males have the connection to the divine, right? And so I do think that but they have all of these little tidbits that I think are connected to all the other Semitic religions around them,
Mhm.
like the Babylonians and all of that. Because in my opinion, they were just one of
You don't grow up in a
a bunch of
vacuum.
them. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, that's one of the things I talk about when I'm talking about studying the Bible is it's important to know the other cultures. And if you can get your hands on some of their writings, but not to, yes, you can identify the similarities, but what really becomes important is identifying the differences
Mhm.
because what makes them unique.
Mhm.
That's what you're looking for within the text, I think. Okay. So a couple things. One is, Catherine mentioned that within the scripture, it talks about this idea of there's a specific command to not be worshiping. And it's in Jeremiah that he talks about, that the author specifically mentions the worship of the Queen of Heaven.
Yep.
And it's probably Ishtar. But what I would say, I don't think it's I don't think that that they're specifically targeting feminine deity. I think what we're seeing is the development of henotheism. Okay, so you have the cultures around them it's polytheism, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then within a culture, what happens is you see then I'm going to use the word evolution. I'm not sure that's the best word, but
a development
where you go from polytheism to henotheism. So henotheism is this idea that yes, multiple gods exist, but only one God deserves to be worshipped,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what I would say is when you see specific things, well, that's
kind of Babylonian. That's the Marduk thing.
That's the Marduk thing, right? And yeah, I mean, I think you see that. Now you also see that. Like in the Greek culture, they have multiple gods. Now that's still polytheism because all the gods deserve some worship. Now some will make one primary, but they still leave place for the worship of others. But in some cultures, you start to see the development of henotheism. Israel is one of those where they talk about the greatest of the gods, Yahweh.
Yeah.
And so Yahweh comes from somewhere in this story, right? And Yahweh becomes the greatest of the gods. And so what I see is not an attack on the divine feminine. I see no other god or goddess deserves worship. And then after they get destroyed by Babylon and Marduk wins, well, then they've got to restructure again because they either have to make Marduk the supreme and Yahweh is another god that doesn't actually deserve to be worshipped. Because he's just part of the pantheon, right? But what they do instead is they move into monotheism. And what they say is, well, actually, Marduk's not even really a god. Our God used you to teach us a lesson. So, I don't, I think it.
I see your point, but I don't, I will say, I'm going to stand on, I still don't see that perspective. I think that they were trying to distinguish themselves, not trying, because I don't think it was conscious. I don't think this is conscious, but I do see a rejection of the feminine as a rejection of, as part of a greater rejection of the cultures around them and the religions around them. I can understand why you come to the perspective that you have, which is, I'm not rejecting feminine. I'm just rejecting all of it, right? In favor of my God Yahweh.
The one God worth worshiping.
Right. But I think that it gets pointed out enough that it's like, how do we tell who the good people are? Well, one of the ways is they worship feminine stuff. And so we reject feminine stuff, right? One of the ways is they do child sacrifice. So we reject child sacrifice. One of the ways is we, you know what I mean? Like, so like I said, I can see how you come to your perspective, but I am compelled that the process. It seems like the process of development in the Hebrew religion seemed to be part, not that it was a central part necessarily, but that it seems like it was an active rejection of the feminine. And then once you get into, once you merge that with the Roman society, post Pauline, I mean, then you've got.
I don't have any problem with the idea of it's a rejection of the cultures around us that in order to become unique, and that's what makes us quote unquote, I think you said like better or right or whatever. I don't have any problem with that. Where I would say, where I would feel like there's a better argument for an attack on the divine feminine isn't in the sort. It would be, well, then the development of Yahweh, the understanding of Yahweh. Why wasn't Yahweh feminine? And that would be a more interesting conversation to me.
Oh, to me that seems completely expected.
And I would say that if you wanted to say, but I think that going to the passage of scripture where it says don't worship the Queen of Heaven, I see that as more of just a rejection of any other gods. But I will say it would be very interesting to be able to track the development of Yahweh as a masculine.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think so. If you start from the position of the feminine is the connection with the mysterious, so all things mysterious, all things divine, and the masculine is the process of humanity moving out into the world, the connection with the world. So like that's how you have the two processes, whatever. Which I think I think that is a big reason why all of this gets rejected in our modern world, because we do not value or see as legitimate the connection with the mysterious at all. We don't care about that. We don't want that. We don't think that's real.
And Ian,
we think that's just an excuse to control what's real, which is out in the world.
Yep. And Ian McGilchrist would agree with you. And he would say that that's actually to our detriment. Because what's happened is we've allowed our left hemisphere of our brain to become the correct one.
Yeah.
And we ignore the right side.
Yeah. And I have become sympathetic to that view, although this is a different topic, but it's a big reason why I have had a problem with religion, or the way that it's the whole purpose of religion in the past is I have felt that it is a bunch of statements about that which cannot be seen or proved in order to claim power over me in the here and now, which can be seen and proved. And so that has been my position that I've had in the past that has made me, want to reject the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm becoming more sympathetic to the idea that in reality, I just don't want anybody else telling me what to do. But anyway, that's just my anti-authoritarian, childishness. Yeah. But anyway, so going back to what I was saying, if you think of the world of humanity, or the world, because that's what we're humans, so we're describing the world, and so that's how we would just look at the whole world this way. If you think of it as the feminine, the female has that's the connection with the divine, the connection with the mysterious, and the male, the masculine, because, by the way, this is important, because it has no meaning in and of itself. The male has no inherent meaning according to in this conception. It cannot create life. It has no connection with what really is, right? The real thing behind the curtain. It's nothing. It dies on the vine unless it's connected with the divine, which is the female. So because of that, it has to go out and find its purpose, right? So if you take that kind of conception of the world, And it makes all the sense in the world to me that the earliest, most, I want to say primitive, but that makes it sound like it's like a negative connotation, but the baseline kind of substrata mythologies would have a masculine god killing or using or coming from and ordering the feminine thing, whatever it is, the Tiamat, the wife of Kronos, all of that. And so then it would make sense to me that because Marduk is what ends up being the god of the Babylonians. Zeus is what ends up being the god of the
Greeks.
The Greeks. Yahweh is what ends up being, because that is the one that interacts with the world, which interacts with the humans and goes out into the world. And so then that would be the masculine. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, like, I think that would make sense.
It'd be interesting now to think about the story of Adam and Eve.
Yeah, sure.
So in that, does Eve represent the chaos?
What I would say is, this is a perfect example of why I think that by the time we get the works, so like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, whatever, it's already been solidified that women are the problem, and it's gotten encoded. Obviously, I'm not saying that. You know what I mean?
You don't have to.
What I'm
you
saying
don't have
is,
to clarify.
this is my argument for.
We're just going to let all our female listeners be mad at you for a couple weeks.
I think that's my world. I think,
or they'll be very happy that you pointed that out.
I think that it by the time it's codified, it already has been instilled into the religion, the culture. Because again, obviously, at that point, the term religion would have been anachronistic. It's not a religion. It's just what is. That the masculine has ordered everything, and that the female is the problem. And there is a this is in that book that Krista recommended to you. The serpent also represents the feminine, the chaos, and that there is a theory that, again, ancient Semitic people groups that the Hebrews would have come out of would have known the serpent not as the holder of evil, as the ultimate evil, Satan, right? Although Satan might have been a name for the, whatever, you know more about that than I do, but that it's, the chaotic feminine energy connection to the mysterious kind of, whatever. I don't know. There you go. Did we solve it, Catherine?
Yeah, I don't know. We have to wait to hear from Catherine if we solved that or not.
Or if we just made her mad.
I don't think we made her mad. I think it's interesting. And I'm not, I got to read the book, like I said, I know enough to get myself in trouble probably. All right. Did we find any common ground on this topic, or was it a topic that really wasn't going to be controversial for us anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole lot of controversy. I mean, I think that you and I do have different perspectives on. It sounded like we had different perspectives on what they were trying to do, what the Hebrews were trying to do with that. But
yeah, okay. So we do have a different perspective on. It's slight, though.
It is slight,
I think. But I do think that, because I do think we also would both agree that that they are trying to create a distinction between who they are as compared to the peoples around them.
Yeah, and I think all of this is really. I mean, I could study myth. Well, I wouldn't say I study it. I listen to it and read about it constantly. I think it's fascinating. because it's all just human psychology. It's great.
Interesting.
I think.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it.
All right. Yeah, we probably disagree on that a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this too. I can see your perspective on religion. We were talking about earlier about to try to control and
yeah.
And to me, where I'm at right now is that the role of I'll use the word religion. I'm not convinced that that's the right word I want to use, but just for sake of discussion, really needs to be to reintroduce or to keep in the conversation the mysterious. I think that's to show that. I think that we make a mistake if we try to use religion to explain concretely. I think that the purpose of religion, and this is a forming thought. So if someone's like, "No, you're Jeff, you're completely wrong." Sure, because I might say it different tomorrow.
Get your own podcast.
Yeah, I might say it different tomorrow. But to think that the purpose of religion is to be able to explain and provide concrete perspectives, information, whatever. I think that that's wrong. I think you're heading in a direction that will never succeed, because you're actually dealing with things that can never be understood and never be explained. And so really the role of religion, the role of faith, the role of belief, whatever, in the divine, is a belief in the mysterious and the unexplainable. And it's to add mystery and to give a greater appreciation for that which cannot be explained. And to try to provide, continue to carve out space for that in a world that we seem to be thinking that we are more and more concrete in our understanding. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, Catherine.
Do you like my sticker?
I do. I love that. Did you order a t-shirt?
No. Is there a t-shirt?
There's going to be a t-shirt. By the way, the sticker is the St. Larry, the mascot of Grace United Methodist Church.
It's on my phone now.
I know. And it's fantastic. And the t-shirts, I think they're going to have they had order forms last week, and they'll continue to take orders.
Awesome.
All right. Have a wonderful week. And Catherine, you'll be hearing this a week after we had the conversation. So take care.
Thank you for listening to Living on Common Ground. Please follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends. You can also find a link to our social in the description. The more people we have living on common ground, the better the world will be.